we're back.
As I shriek with glee. We're back.
These are some very special mini episodes of Convo Heals. It's just Dr. Brandi and Dr. Erika today. As we've said, the convo is what heals. And we mean those small conversations that add up. And that is where the healing is. That's the stuff of relationships. And so here we are today. We're going to have a few mini episodes to roll out about some topics that we've just been kind of convoing about.
Oh, that we've been living with.
Yes.
Contending with. And I think the masses are contending and living with grief, with stress, with trauma, with hate.
Yes.
And hurt.
Yes.
And a whole lot of love.
A whole lot of love.
I feel it right now.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. That's the thing that our audience just won't see, is that's why the convo heals.
Yeah.
It's not about the strategies, the tips, the science, all useful, but at the end of the day, the healing is because we have each other. We trust each other, and we hold each other accountable and say the honest things. It really is about that love. We can't forget that.
I think it's birthed there. Like, I think that's where you curate and derive your strategies. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting in, I guess I did anticipate this, but it's conscious to me because I haven't seen you and laid eyes on you and like felt your presence in the flesh in a few months. And I'm just sitting and thinking about how many silly, fun conversations we've had. And I'm also thinking about how we've also had really, like you said, accountable, some really hard, vulnerable conversations as well.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful to you for that.
Yeah, I am to you. My goodness.
We're inviting you in.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. We're talking about liberation in these episodes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think so. I'm so excited about these mini episodes because the kind of anchor, the core, maybe the calling, actually. I think it's a calling. I'm going to tell you what I'm on in 2025.
Yeah, tell us.
I am on liberation.
Yeah.
I am on freedom, spiritual, mental, psychological, like financial, emotional freedom. And it's been heavy on me for a few years, but I think I've also felt, in full transparency, very intimidated and reluctant about what that means for me. So it's been a very private thing until recently, but I'm feeling a little more increasingly grounded. And because the convo heals, I'm ready to express and share and talk and invite people, not just to talk about their suffering or their fear or their hurt, must be acknowledged. We're not going to dismiss that.
No way.
But also liberation.
Yes.
And hope.
Yes.
And inspiration.
Yes.
We need that.
Yes.
We need it.
I think about grief and liberation actually as being the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
From a process standpoint,
yes.
Right? That to be liberated from our suffering, we must grieve.
See, this is why I talk to Dr. Erika on a daily basis, because she's just deep. No, can I talk about you real quick? Okay. I'm about to talk about you.
Okay, then I'm going to talk about you.
Dr. Bachnick is one of the most spiritually expansive women I know. And it just feeds my soul. Like I get full in your presence, but sometimes I'm not hungry. Do you remember once when we were eating and I was like, Erika, this is not a deep conversation.
Yes,
I don't want to have a deep conversation.
You did.
I was like, Erika, not today.
Yes. And you have no idea what a nurturance that is for me, that somebody in my life can say, we don't have to go there. Yeah. Sometimes when I think of you, this analogy comes into my head that's like, I'm scuba diving in life. And I love to go deep and explore the ocean floor and wonder about it. And I could suffocate if I never came up for air.
Yeah.
And also, I don't want to live at the surface.
That's right.
You know, I want both things. I'm a little ambivalent, actually, about going back up to the surface. It's a little hard for me. And you are somebody in my life who's willing to say to me, I'm so here and present when you're exploring. And also, please come back up to the surface. My God.
I am an earth sign. That might have something to do with it.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I'm an earth sign, yeah. What are you?
I'm a Sagittarius.
Are you air? Or
I
are you
don't know.
fire?
I don't know. Tell me.
You got a little bit of both in there.
I do?
I think you might be fire. I'm gonna have to look this up. Okay, but I've got questions for you then.
Okay.
So if the anchor is to amplify liberation as a way of, in some ways, honoring the suffering and the full human experience, we're talking specifically about grief. What have been some life lessons or epiphanies that you have gleaned by living with grief? You were starting to talk about that.
Well, I think there are opportunities to grieve in these kind of micro level ways and then in big ways, right? Often I think we hear the word grief and we think about loss. And I think about, when my first clinical internship ever a million years ago, I worked in a substance abuse hospital. And one of the sort of common activities the clinicians there would walk people through is writing a loss line. And they would really encourage them to write everything on the loss line that was a loss. So not just when a parent passed away or sort of these big moments of loss, but like you lost your virginity and, the loss of a version of yourself that you needed to let go of and really mapping it out. And in that context, the point was to sort of say, okay, now where did addiction onset?
Yes.
When did the loss become too much to bear? There were those kinds of questions, but it really made me expand my thinking on what loss means, that we are kind of constantly in a process of shedding. And so to answer your question more directly, the first thing that came up for me when I thought today about grief is about friendships and how I am lucky there are friendships in my life that have sustained all the iterations of self.
Isn't that a gift?
And I mean, it is, but it's also yes, it's a beautiful gift, yes. It's also a gift, though, that there are relationships that fit.
Yeah.
And then there's this moment of suffering when it doesn't fit. And then what do you do that really is liberation, not just escape, not just avoidance, but is the liberation in that moment? And to me, grief is a necessary part.
It's so wild how, so we fit. It's in a lot of ways. It's so wild how we talk all the time. We haven't shared conversation specifically about this in this way.
Right.
And what you're saying really resonates with what one of my lessons was.
Tell me.
I got my notes, y'all, because I can go on a tangent. So one of my lessons is I feel like grief, and by grief, I'm referring to like a deep sorrow caused by a loss.
Yeah.
It has been a gift to me.
Tell me.
It has truly been a gift to me. And I wasn't thinking about it in this exact way, but it resonates, it connects. It has been a gift to me because it has been kind of the evidence that I've experienced, had, or participated in something super valuable. It's like an aliveness in a way. It's like an indicator of aliveness. Sure, it might not always be pleasant. The experience of grief, which is what I think we get really distracted by, like this is uncomfortable or this hurts or this is sad. But it's only sad because it mattered. It only hurts because I cherished it or I valued it or because, wow, it's something that for a time, hence your point about how sometimes it doesn't fit anymore in friendships, for a time it was something that I was so comfortable relying upon. I didn't even realize I might not have it forever. And I think I just see that as something special in a valuable way, not just in a hard way.
You're talking about grief. I just want to name, there's a way that you're talking about grief that is about the feeling of grieving. Mm-hmm. That isn't about what it's all for or where to go next or how to do it, but you're really beautifully talking about sitting in grief and how that, I think what you're saying, and I'd love to hear you say more about this, is that whereas for me, I'm kind of setting up this way that to actively grieve is liberating for me. What you're saying, I think, is that when you're in grief, it also feels like being in love.
Yeah.
Is there that?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you say more about that?
So, I'll be looking at my notes. Okay. This is what comes to my mind. My godmother, Yvette Morgan, she died in 2007. She was 41. And I remember a moment, maybe 6 months after her passing, maybe less, where I think I've shared this story before, where I went just naturally, and I think a lot of people have this experience. I naturally went to try to call her about something, like something I was excited about that I knew she would appreciate. I had an association to it with her. And I went to try to call her, and then I was reminded that she wasn't there. And that did not feel good. But it was almost like, I wrote it this way. It was almost like to feel her absence was to actually feel her presence. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I first felt her. Figuratively, spiritually, cosmically, because I was intuitively, I was called to her. And then I couldn't touch her, but I experienced her beyond the flesh. It's a very subtle, quiet space in between. And what is usually overwhelming is the absence. But in order to feel the absence, you will have had to have experienced its presence.
Is the opposite true, do you think? To feel the love and the presence? Do we have to know
loss in order to really hold it?
Do you think?
I think they go together. Kind of like you're saying, grief is liberation. I think they go together. I think the richness goes together. I mean, look, I've got my quirks and all that, but I'm a deeply loving person. And I really love and love people and love bonding and connection. A part of the reason that part of me is so strong is because of loss. You know, you don't really take it for granted. I'm 41 now. My godmother, she passed at 41. So while I know a lot of women that would dare never to say their age because of our cultural schemas around age, I am in love with my gray and all my 41 magic. I'm just in love with it. And it's associated in some ways with loss. So otherwise I take it for granted a little.
Now, I know we're here to talk about grief, but you just said, I'm really a loving person, as though I would not know that about you, as though a person wouldn't know that about you, because I think that is like the first thing a person would know about you, that your love is first. Yeah. I think that you bring that energy into all relational spaces.
Thank you.
I'm surprised to hear you say that, actually.
Thank you. I think it was coming more from a place of ownership. Like, I know that about me. Yeah. It's it's nice to hear it, too. Yeah. But I know that about me.
Yeah, I think that's who you are first.
Okay, so one lesson that we're kind of sharing is that there's liberation in grief. Yeah. And that it is paramount to love.
Is it a kind of liberation that you're talking about too, that do you feel liberated when you sort of are saying, I can grieve, I can suffer?
Oh, gosh, no. Usually no. I mean, at least not initially. I mean, there's so much humanness in this too. Like, I don't want to, you know what, it leads me to, I think this is probably the third thing I wrote. No, it's not even on here, but it's coming up for me. No, it's not always a feeling. It's actually for me more of a knowing. Sometimes it's more of a knowing where, the grief experience itself, if I'm in it, depending on where I am in it. Mm-hmm. And it's not linear. I think we all know that. People that are familiar with stages of grief know that they're not like linear all the time. They kind of cycle. Yes. My mother, I'm kind of emphasizing the grief and the loss associated with death because that's what's coming up for me right now. But, my mother died when I was very, very young. I've lived most of my life without her, over 30 years. Mm-hmm. And so there are times where I don't really think about it at all. But when I turned 28, I couldn't shake it. That was a deeply uncomfortable year because my mother passed at 27. Mm-hmm. Or a couple years ago, my son was 10. I was 10 when my mother died. So we have these associations. And if you can recognize them for what they are, they don't have to really cause that much additional suffering. Mm-hmm. But when I'm in those moments, can I curse on our thing? I might feel like shit.
I feel fine about it.
I might feel awful.
Yeah.
But I know, I just have a knowing that this is appropriate. This is an appropriate experience to have in this moment.
I think that took me a very long time in my life. I think that this is really core to how we cope and grow and become liberated through our grief. Has to do with that knowingness that there is purpose, meaning, and also that this won't last forever in exactly this way, that there will always be movement in how I feel and how I experience my life. The knowingness of that is what makes it safe to not kind of feel the need to sort of like button it up, pack it in, not go through it. It's like the North Star, like you're moving towards it. How do you give that to people?
Oh, I love so much of what you're saying. Like, I really, really respect what you just said about how the grieving itself changes its form over time. Like you kind of acknowledge that. I was having a conversation with someone this morning, actually. And I asked them the question. I said, well, what have you learned about living with grief? And she said, oh, that it never goes away. And I said, really? What makes you say that? She says, you just learn to deal with it. And I hear that a lot. And I'm actually of the perspective that, well, the temperament or the energy that by which she was saying this was kind of insinuated that it wasn't pleasant or good. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of like, yeah, maybe it doesn't ever go away, but it doesn't have to. Like, I do think we can transcend a grief experience from one form to another. Mm-hmm. I believe that. Mm-hmm. Like, it changes form. It can change form over time. Mm-hmm. And that maybe we can even embrace that and welcome that. How do you give that to someone or teach that to someone? I think you make as much room as possible for the part that sucks. We're so intimidated by it. So we disrupt all that grief has to offer us. I wanted us to kind of isolate a couple of lessons. So one is liberation. I think one that is emerging to the top is that grief is to be respected and accepted and maybe even embraced.
Yes, absolutely.
I also wrote this. Tell me what you think about this. I personally have learned, because I think we're talking a little bit about this, I have learned that grief is one primary source of resilience for me.
Tell me about that.
How often have you said or heard someone say, I don't know what I would do if A, B, and C happened? Oh my goodness. If my grandmother lost 2 of her 3 children. Oh my goodness. I don't know what I would do if I lost my child. And then sometimes we have, unfortunately, experiences where I don't know what I would do if we got a divorce. And you do. I don't know what I would do if that happened to me. I have a friend that was in Katrina. She lost everything. We have people really suffering right now from the loss of their livelihoods in California. I send so much love to them. When you're in the thick of it, you can't see.
Yes.
It's so vulnerable. I don't know what I would do. So many of those people are going to rebuild their lives. And that is to be respected and praised and celebrated. So I think it's a source of strength.
Yeah.
And I think it's also kind of matured me personally, my mindset.
It's also a very normal part of life.
Yeah.
And so that always speaks to me spiritually, that we can't treat it like an aberration. Like, we didn't expect this. We didn't expect suffering or grief. As you're talking, I'm also thinking about how we don't want to mix up tragedy, oppression, loss with grief as a process. I'm thinking about this a lot these days. The Jewish people we read the Torah as a community front to back, and then we start over. So in the moment we're in right now, we're reading the book of Exodus, which I think most people are familiar with the Exodus story. And I'm thinking a lot about the 4 steps of liberation that are laid out in that story, and how that's like grief to me, because the beginning is like, there's the event. It's like the physical extrication, but everything else is about, then what? What do you do with that?
So
how do you build a better world? And why do we keep reading the story over and over? It's because we have to keep learning. We have to keep mining it for lessons, which to me also is a parallel in life. Like, we have to experience suffering because it is a teacher. That doesn't mean we endorse the exact ways we suffer, right?
That's right.
It's different. But meeting suffering is to meet grief and to have the opportunity to be liberated.
That is a word that it's not in vain.
Yeah.
We're not saying it's acceptable.
Yes.
We're saying it's not in vain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that it is life.
I would say, tell me what you think about this.
Yeah.
The other, I mean, there's so many lessons, right?
This topic's a good one.
There's so many lessons.
Yeah.
But one more that I'd like to throw out that feels special to me, I've been thinking about this, is that I think grief has taught me that love transcends time and form.
Oh, my goodness. Is that beautiful?
That it just lives on, it like generation to generation to generation to generation.
Yes. Yes. I want to just sit with that.
Yeah.
Grief has taught you that love transcends time and form.
I know you have stories for that.
Actually, if you don't mind, this is the story I want to tell about that. I think this might surprise you a little bit, so I hope it's okay.
Of course.
But what I immediately thought of when you said that is that I got to witness the care you gave your Gammy. And the exceptional amount of love between the two of you that I think is very just beautiful and, I mean, rare, but also just I don't have a word for it. I really soaked that up. And that love now sort of creates an imprint on me, on anyone else who's distal. It's not about us, right? But there's the way that there's that big love that you two had, that I witnessed it in the process of grieving and suffering, actually, that it became so amplified so that I could touch it, other people could touch it. And I'll take that with me forever into my relationships, my life. And so it truly, I know you meant something different when you said transcendental, but that was for me the first thing that came to mind, is that it has all these like impacts.
I got my lashes on. That really touches me. I did not expect that. That really, really, really touches me. It feels very powerful to me to hear you say that. And it makes me feel so proud of her. Like, I feel so proud of her. I was thinking of things like, I mean, there's so many dimensions to this. I was thinking of, silly things. I think this is a great example for people, really silly things. I remember my grandmother had this white, bushy little fro, white hair.
Yeah.
And one day I was laying out, I was in some sun, and I was laying out, and I looked up, and the clouds looked like her hair. And it just made me smile. I was like, hey. I mean, just little things. They don't got to be super profound.
Right.
So thank you for what you just said. And many life lessons. I encourage people to really think through, what does this particular form of suffering have to offer me? I know what it's robbed me of or taken from me or challenged in me, but what has it offered me? Because we're here thinking about how grief can help liberate in its relationship to liberation.
Yes.
What resources or things have been helpful to you, or that you would encourage people to consider? Or,
I mean, I really, for me, I think diving into the stories of my people, my cultural traditions, it's like a reminder that I'm never the first person to experience something, that there's wisdom that has been laid out for me. That's really the most helpful thing for me. As much as it might sound abstract, I take a lot of energy and liberating energy in the idea that what I'm going through that might feel specific to me and kind of constricting is this very human thing. And there's a spiritual connection it gives me to others. That's been very helpful.
That's not small.
Yeah.
It's very communal.
Yeah.
And it's similar to the last thing I said. It transcends. It's relational. It's communal. It's intergenerational. It's lovely.
How about for you? What's the thing?
I would totally agree with that. I would agree with that. Even people I don't know, like memoirs or documentaries or, even I find a lot of inspiration there and a lot of comfort. Most people tend to grieve in isolation in some ways. So you are not alone. We are all grieving something. I would say that. I would say, particularly since we've talked about my Gammy and I've talked a lot about loss and death, there's a book specifically that sticks out to me. It was called Final Gifts. That was a really good one. So reading memoirs, documentaries, sharing stories, hearing stories and sharing stories. Yes. Both and.
Yes.
Yeah. I would encourage that people don't grieve in isolation. Tranquility is different than isolation. And on that note, the convo heals.
Did we do some healing? I think we did.
The convo heals, y'all. Check us out on YouTube.
Yes.
Where else? Instagram.
Yes.
I am Dr. Brandi.
Dr. Erika.
Thank you.